Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to another video. So in this video, we will build a powerful custom React hook to fetch data from the server and also provide us with different states of the API request like loading, fetching, error, which we can use in our application. So if this sounds interesting, then stick around. Also don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. So let's get started. Alright guys, if you are looking for a full-time job opportunity for you, then I have an exciting news from Relevel by Unacademy. It is India's first platform to help all aspirants have access to their dream job. By taking the Relevel test, they engage in comprehensive skill assessment, which industry evaluates relevant skills and their job readiness. If you wish to showcase your skill to the best companies in India like Cred, Grow, Upgrade, Misho, and many more, then what you can do is you can take part for the Relevel test for free on the platform based on your skills and time. And if you pass the Relevel test, they guarantee minimum package of 4 lakhs per annum for non-tech roles and 6 lakhs per annum for tech roles. People are getting packages up to 15 lakhs per annum as well. There is no age or experience limit for the eligibility. If you are 18 plus or 40 years of age, you can attempt the Relevel test to get 50% plus hike for your next job in the best product based companies. Relevel has changing lives for months now. Find all the people who took the best decision of their lives with Relevel through their platform with the Relevel Achievers Twitter handle. Let's see how we can register for the test. So we will go to the Relevel platform and just click on the Get Hired. Now, based on the skills, we will select the test. I will select front-end development test. We can see the details and then we can select the slot based on our availability. And then we just need to upload our video resume. That's all. Sit back, take the test, and companies will reach out to you based on your score. You will find all the links related to the Relevel in the description of the video. Alright guys, so I have already bootstrapped a React application and I have removed all the unwanted files that I don't want for this project. Let me give you a quick walkthrough of the code. So this is our folder structure, and in the source folder, I only have the index.js, which has the default code. And in the app.js, I have removed the default JSX and I have just added a h1 tag, which says custom React hook data fetching. Now we are going to create a custom React hook that will actually going to fetch the data from the server, and then we are going to use that hook to get the data. So what we are going to do is, first thing, we need to create a file which will be our custom hook. So I will go to my source and I'm going to create a file and I'm going to name the file as useFetch.js. So now let's create a function, and the name of the function I'm going to give it as the useFetch. So let me add the useFetch. All right, and we are just going to export this useFetch function. So let me add a default and I'm going to add the useFetch. All right, so now we have added a function and we have exported the function. Now what we can do is we can actually import this function here. So let me add the import useFetch. All right, and what we want is, whenever we use the useFetch function, we need the data from the server which we have fetched, and along with that we also need the state of the API request, like the loading state and the error state. So what I will do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to write a constant, and in the constant what we want is we need the data which is coming from the server. Along with that, what we also need is we need the loading state, that the API is in the loading state, and we need the error state, that whenever there is an error, we need to display that error. And all this will be coming from the use fetch. So let's add the use fetch here. But right now, if we go to our use fetch, we don't see anything here. So we have to return something from this use fetch. So what I will do is I'm going to add a return here, and inside the return it's going to return an object, and our object will look like so. I'm going to have the data, which will be an array of objects. Then I'm going to have the loading, so let's have the loading initially as false, and in the end we're going to have the error. So let me have the error and I'm going to add the error as null. Now let's go in the app.js and display this information. So what I'm going to do is I will come here, and the first thing we need, that if we have a loading, then in that case we are going to display a JSX for loading. So I'm going to add a loading here. All right. Next one will be if we have an error. So let's add an error. And if there is an error, then I want to display in H3. And inside the H3, I'm going to write error, something went wrong. All right. I will also change this to H3. So let me change this to H3. All right. And the last one is the data. So what we are going to do is if we have the data, then in that case we are, or let's simply have the data dot length. All right. So now if we go here, then we see that we have a 0 here. And that is because if we go in the use fetch, we have a data which is a array and the length of this array is 0. So if I change this loading to true, then we should be able to see the loading here. So let's go here and we see the loading. So that means our useFetch hook is able to return the data and we are able to use the data to display it in the app.js. Now let's write the functionality in the useFetch. So we are going to make an API call to the server. So for that, we will need a base URL. And for this project, I'm going to use a open API. So let me go here. And this is the public APIs. You will find all the free APIs. And I'm going to using a InShort. So this is the InShort news. So let me click here. All right, now if we go here and we see that how we can make the API call, then we see that this is the URL we need to use, and we have to add the category as the query param, and you can add the category name. So there are a lot of categories we can add. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this, and when we click on this, we actually get this JSON data. So what we will do is we are going to use this as a URL to call the API, and I'm going to add a base URL here. So let me add a constant, and I'm going to add a base URL, and this base URL will be this one. All right. And what I want is whenever we make use of this use fetch hook, we need to pass the URL. So I'm going to pass the URL here. So let me add the URL. And now let's go to our use fetch. And inside the use fetch, we are going to take this URL. All right. And what we will do here is I'm going to make use of a use reducer so that I can manage my state locally. So for that, I'm going to write a constant, and this is going to be equals to the use reducer. So if you don't know about the use reducer, then I have a complete video on it. You can click on the card above and jump to it directly. So whenever we make use of the use reducer always returns us the state, and the other parameter, it is the dispatch function. So let me add the dispatch. And what we need to do here is here we have to add the reducer. So let me add the reducer. All right. And then it will be an initial state. So let me add the initial state here. All right. I have misspelled the initial state. Now let's create this initial state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to add the initial state. So I'm going to write a constant and I'm going to have an initial state, and this state will be an object, and our state will be very similar to what we have returned here. So I'm going to cut this and I'm going to add it here. All right. And here we will return the state simply. So our application is still working as it is. So if we go here and if we see here, then we have some problems. The URL is not defined and the use reducers, and we need to define the function as well. So what I'm going to do is let's first import the use reducer hook. All right. So now we have the use reducer hook, and we also need to define the reducer function. So this is our reducer function. So let's have the definition of it. So I'm going to have the reducer. All right. And this reducer is actually going to take two parameters. One will be the state and other will be the action. So now we don't have the actions at the moment. So what we can do is we can actually create the actions. So let me add the action. So I'm going to write a constant actions, which will be equals to the object. And here I'm going to write the API request, and this will be equals to the API request. All right. And then I'm also going to add two more actions. The one will be the fetch data. So for that, I'm going to have the fetch data, and this will be equals to the fetch data. And the third one we need is if there is an error, we need to dispatch an action. So for that, I'm going to have the error. So let me add the error, and this will be equals to the error. All right. So now we have the actions, and these actions now can be used it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to destructure here. So whenever we have an action, the action always have two attributes. One is the type and other one is the payload. All right. So now we have this, and now let's go and refresh it. If we refresh it, then we see that there is a problem with the URL. So let's go here, and here instead of the URL, we should add the base URL. So let me copy this and I'm going to add it here. So I don't see the L here. So let me add the URL. All right. So now we have the URL here, and we also get the URL in this function. So now we need to make an Axios call. So first, let's import the Axios. So I have already installed the Axios package. So if we go to the package JSON, then you will see that I already have the Axios installed. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to import the Axios. So let me import the Axios, and that will be coming from the Axios. All right, and now we will just make an API call using the Axios. So before making the API call, what we need to do is if we want to make an API call here, then we have to use the useEffect hook. So what I will do is I'm going to add the useEffect. All right, and here I'm going to use the useEffect. So let me add the useEffect, and this is going to be an arrow function, and we need to add a dependency here, and my dependency will be the URL. Whenever the URL changes, I need to run the useEffect hook. So I'm going to add the URL here. All right. And what we will do here is now first we need to make a dispatch event, and the dispatch event will be for the API request. So first we will make an API request which will show the loading state. Once the API request is successful, then it's going to have the fetch data dispatch event. And then in case the data is not available or there is an error, then we're going to dispatch an error. So let's add a dispatch here. And this dispatch is going to have a type, and the type will be actions.api request. All right. So now we are making an API request. Once we have the API request, let's call the Axios. So I'm going to have the axios.get, and I'm going to pass the URL. And then what I'm going to have is I'm going to have the response, and this response will have the arrow function. All right. So once we get the response, I have to make another dispatch event that will be the fetch data. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a dispatch, and this dispatch is going to have a type of actions.fetch data, and we are going to have the payload. So let me add the payload. The payload will be the response dot data. So this will become res. So let me copy this and add the res here. All right. And now if there is an error while making an API request, then we are going to dispatch the error. So for that, let's catch the error. So I'm going to have a catch here, and this catch is going to have an arrow function, and we are going to have the error event, and here we will dispatch. So let me have the type of my action. So the type will be actions.error, and in this case my payload will be e.error. All right. So now if we see our use effect, then in the use effect, you will see that first we have the dispatch event, which is actually the API request we are making to the server. And in that case, whenever we make an API request, we need to display loading on the screen. So what we have to do is now let's go here in our reducer, and let's write the cases. So I'm going to write the switch case. All right. And here what I will do is if my type, so let me add the type, and if my type is equals to the actions dot API request, then in that case, what I have to return is, let me return here. So I'm going to return the object. And while returning the object, I'm going to take all the initial state first. So let me add the dot 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 state. And what will be my new state, or what the attributes are changing here is I need my data in that case should be an empty array. and I need to make the loading as true because I want to show that it's loading, and I'm going to remove this break. All right. Now let's write the other two cases as well. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add it here and here. All right. And the next case is if the actions is the fetch data. So let me add the fetch data. That in that case, what I have to do is I'm going to write the data will be my payload. So let me add the payload dot data. So if you want to see that why I'm writing this payload dot data, then we can actually do a console log here. And if we do a console log, so then here we can add the payload so that we can see that what we actually get in this payload. And in that case, my loading will become false because now I have already fetched the data from the server. So I'm going to change this to false. All right. And the third one will be the error. So let me change this to error. And in case there is an error, what I'm going to do is the loading will be already false. So let me change this to false first. Okay, so initially the loading is false. And in that case, the data will be empty. And here I'm going to have the error. So let me add the error. And this error will be equals to the payload. So let me add the payload here. All right. And if there is a default case, then I want to just return the state, whatever I have in the existing state. So I'm going to add the state and let me add the return here. All right. So I have added the return here and we now have the reducer as well. And we have the useFetch also. Now let's give a try and let's try to run it. So if I go here and if I refresh it, then you will see that initially we have the loading and the, so let me refresh it again. So if I refresh, then you see that initially I have the loading displayed here and the length is 0. Once the data is fetched from the server, the loading becomes false and the data length becomes 25. That means we are getting 25 records. So now let's go here in our app.js, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this and I'm just going to display all the data which I fetch from the server. So what I will do here is, so I'm going to add a div here. So let me add a div, and inside the div, I'm going to have a pre-tag. And in the pre-tag, what I will do is I'm going to display a JSON dot stringify, and we are going to display the data. I'm going to have the second parameter as undefined, and I'm going to add the 2 here. All right. Now, if I save it, then we see that we have all the data which we are fetching from the server, but this is not looking nice. So what I'm going to do is I will go to the app.js and I'm just going to remove this. All right. And now if we see that, we see all the data that we are fetching from our server with the help of the useFetch custom hook. Now you can use this data and you can display it on the screen and you can add the JSX. Now the best part for this useFetch hook is you can use this useFetch hook in different components and you just need to pass the URL. Your URL can be the same throughout your application or you have a different URL. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So what we will do is now let's say that this is the base URL. Now you have a different component and you need to fetch the data. And one more thing we can do is now this is returning us the news. So I can add the news here. And now if I save it, then we are going to get an error as the data. So what we will do is we're going to use this news here. So let me add the news. And now you will see that we have the news here. Now we need to make use of the same use fetch hook for a different URL or for a different API. So let's go and let me have a different API. So I'm going to use the regress, and in the regress, we are going to have the list users. So let's go down and I'm going to make use of this endpoint. So we need to fetch all the users. So I'm going to copy this. And what I'm going to do is, suppose you have a different component, then in that component, you're going to have a base URL. So you will just copy the base URL and then you're going to make use of the use fetch hook. And in this case, your data will be the users. So let me add the users here and I'm going to change the users here. All right. And now let's go and let's see. Now you see that we have all the users. Now you can make use of a JSX and display the users on your screen. So that's how the use fetch hook is powerful. It's a generic use fetch hook. You can pass your URL and you can get the data which you want. So that's all I have in this video. I hope you liked the video. This use fetch custom hook is very powerful when you build a bigger application. and you don't need to repeat your logic every time. So that's all I have in this video. I hope you liked the video. A thumbs up is appreciated. You can also connect with me via Facebook or Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter for latest update. I will add the GitHub link for this code in the description so that you can download it and play around it. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss the videos like this one. Thank you guys for watching.